knowing the market and everything. Obviously, some venues they'll print more, or some less, but I think they would be pretty accurate with what their projection, what you would hope anyway. But then I think there's probably like an online like merch store or something that you can get all that kind of stuff. I mean, hopefully, I'm not saying that he would, I don't, that he would or would not do this, but it would be kind of a neat idea to have any sort of non-sold shirts be donated to a charity or like sent to like
Overseas, like they do with the like Super Bowl stuff and all that.
yeah,
Yeah.
countries in need and all that kind of stuff, children in need. That would be kind of cool, but that's just me.
I almost was gonna comment on your shirt and say it almost looks like a Rod Stewart Kermit the Frog, and I was like, please tell me it's like a weird old school Faces shirt or something like
No,
that.
I wish it was, man. It just says the lovers, the dreamers, like Kermit's like song, the lovers, the dreamers, in me. But it's him like with like a rock and roll, very very Rod Stewart, Ronnie Wood kind of haircut.
Yeah. Who magically Rod Stewart can just keep that haircut and it never looks stupid or
Dude,
dated somehow.
he's because he's awesome
I was
and
gonna say I think I remember you. Actually, I think it was the World of Blaze DVD where they were giving you shit for liking Rod Stewart or having a hairstyle like Rod Stewart. I was like,
oh
there's
yeah
nothing
yeah
wrong with
yeah,
that.
dude. Hey, listen, like if my follicle fortitude was what it once was, I would still have a big pineapple on top. My hair just doesn't stand up as like it used to, you
I
know.
feel like that look's gonna come back very soon. It seems like the early 2000s like scene stuff is coming back slowly, at least from what I can tell.
Yeah, dude. Let me tell you, like '70s, '60s rock and roll. That stuff's the coolest for a reason. It's still,
It's
you know,
timeless.
it's timeless. Like the style comes in and out of like popularity. The music style, like that kind of stuff, comes in and out of like popularity, but it's always there. You know what I mean? It's always like a standard. Like I don't know. Kids, they'll figure it out. They'll start listening to the Stones and the Faces and the Small Faces and the Creation, and just be like, "Yo, this shit's awesome." It's like, yeah, man. You just gotta. You just, they don't know it yet. That's all.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it doesn't help that a lot of these bands are slowly dying. Like, I mean, in
No,
light of
but
Chris Cornell passing, like I made a sort of shitty social commentary where I just my Facebook status was like insert Google image search of Chris Cornell here. And someone
yeah,
was like, I had a couple of texts from people like, "That's not fucking cool." Like, he really meant a lot. And I go, I understand that, and I really genuinely do like Chris Cornell and Audioslave and Soundgarden and a lot of the stuff that he's done. I go, my biggest bitch with any of these things, and it's a greater sense of social awareness on tragedies as a whole, is I feel like it becomes more about being included in the discussion as opposed to actually talking about like you know it's the person who never talks about music, never seems to give a fuck about anything, and then all of a sudden it's like there's this like long like fucking 12 paragraphs about like how much this band meant to them. All of a sudden it's like uh I guess yes, I can understand that that is how you feel, but on the other hand it's like I never have ever heard you listen to the band. I've
yeah.
never seen you talk about like when the band's coming around, like how stoked you are to go see him, or how stoked you were that like the show was awesome. Nothing like that. It's like in the day and age of everyone oversharing, it's like it's a little bit easier. I feel like to weed out the bullshit of what people actually genuinely give a shit about and what people don't.
Oh,
And
for
that was
sure.
definitely one of those where I was like, I just never I'm calling bullshit on a lot of you, and I hate to say it because it's like, and the worst part is for me, not the worst, but the easiest part for me to call bullshit on a lot of it is like literally they were playing Detroit, which is like 3 hours from here, and I saw all the people who were stoked on it and those who weren't able to go for various reasons. So it's like when the other like three-quarters of my Facebook friends and all these people are like, oh, I really love this band and blah blah blah. It's like you're the same people who probably like the next year like, when you guys coming through my town,
Yeah,
after they
yeah, yeah.
just got
Right.
done playing, and you're like, I mean, that's a thing. I know that that's a thing, and I see
Oh,
it all the time. So it's
yep.
like, come on. Um,
I agree with that as far as like it's more of a like to be included or like hey look at me I well yeah to be included I liked this person too and kind of like and I don't want to discount anyone who who am I to say if they legitimately like the band or not but I just think it's uh, you see that a lot with any like especially like notable person David Bowie, Lemmy,
Prince,
Prince, you know
yeah,
what I mean it's like I can legitimately say that I'm a huge David Bowie, a huge Motorhead, and a huge Prince fan. I have been since I was a kid. You know what I mean? and I don't. And I'm sure, there's a lot of people out there who are like life. Maybe there's a lot of new fans too, and they're still, I think, allowed the same amount of bum out or whatever. But I just think there a lot of, hey, look at me. How many likes can I get for saying I liked this person too? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is kind of silly. Like Chris Cornell, I think I never really got into Audio Slave, and I grew up with Soundgarden being like and a huge band and exploding and on the scene, and like, wow, these guys are so cool. But they were like, I never paid too much attention to them. Like, I liked what I heard from them, but I never had a record. And I always, like, if their videos were on, I was like, yeah, man, this song's fucking awesome. Like, wow, these guys are cool, man. I dig them. But they never were a band that was like constantly on my radar. You know what I mean? So I was like, yeah, so I can't say that I was like a big Soundgarden fan, but I was like a fan of more so that they were this huge monumental band that I may not have too much thing invested to. You know what I mean? It's like, I fucking despise Led Zeppelin. I fucking hate
I'm in
that
the same
band.
boat.
But I can't discount like how much of an influence that they've had on rock and roll. You know what I mean? Like, and they're still a hugely monumental, inspirational, band, just because I don't give a fuck about them. You know what I mean? I hate the Grateful Dead too, but like, they're still a band that I have to respect. You know what I mean? Like,
I think we just became best friends for being the most hated musical choices.
Yeah,
Actually, to segue for just a second, I know something that for me, why I don't mind the tunes that any of those. Well, actually, I do kind of mind Grateful Dead. I just can't get into it. So that's a completely different thing. With Led Zeppelin, though, something that I've always said and kind of usually gets a little bit of heat for it is, I have often said, especially given the nature of the music industry around, in the I won't quite say the 40s, but at least like the 50s with Elvis and 60s and 70s with people just ripping off those other artists who weren't at a position to be able to fight back.
Yeah.
Something I've always said is, when everyone's like, well, look at, the contributions that Zeppelin has had over the years and to influence so many people. And I go, if it wasn't them, it would have been somebody. Just honestly, that's how I feel about it. It would have been somebody, maybe not to the grander scale that what Zeppelin has. I mean, with literally a generation like identifying with that band and becoming like, a 60s, 70s band that everyone loved. I mean, it's almost like the Frampton Comes Alive. I feel like if you were born in that era, like eventually you just either like got it for free or whatever, like you ended up with some of those records. But yeah. I've always felt that. I feel that's redundant. I've always felt that if it wasn't Zeppelin, it would have been somebody. I mean, at that point, look at all the bands that were coming out around that time that kind of that had a lot of the same influences, but changed things slightly. Whether it be like Sabbath, everyone loved the Beatles, but they couldn't be the Beatles, so they became Sabbath and were heavier and down-tuned and so on and so forth. So I feel like there would have been plenty of other bands coming out at that same time that would have affected the music landscape like they did. So, I mean, the fact that everyone says it would have never happened if it wasn't for Zeppelin, I strongly disagree with.
Yeah, because, I mean, there was bands that were doing almost identical things, right place, right time kind of situation. Not to say that, again, like, I get a lot of heat for voicing my displeasure. Too. And it's kind of like a goof now, you know what I mean? Everyone's like, oh, blah, 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 and it's like, yeah, you know what? I always would like shit talk. Everyone's like, "Oh, Jimmy Page is like top 100 greatest guitar player." No, he's a fucking shitty guitar player, dude. Like, he's a great songwriter, but he fucking is a sloppy ass guitar player. And everyone's like, "Well, you like sloppy guitar, man? Listen to all this fucking punk and like garage rock that you listen to." Yeah, but you know what? Sloppy in a good way. Jimi Hendrix is a sloppy, floppy guitar player, but it's like in a kind of cool. Yeah, exactly. There's like that's his style to it, Where I always thought Jimmy Page, I heard someone who was just couldn't play. He was just fucking up and he wasn't trying to. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like Guitar Center. But I mean, I get a lot of heat for that, whatever. But I think as I've gotten older, what really nails it for me, particularly with them, is that fucking I hate that dude's voice.
Robert Plant, you're not
because he was like a one-trick pony, and I get it. That like kind of spurned the whole like more falsetto-y, like we're metal started.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, with that being the case, what are your thoughts on David Coverdale and like Whitesnake?
I mean, it's
Same thing.
if,
Still have the same problem, or because
yeah.
it's
I
funny
mean,
is I
well,
like David Coverdale a lot more, and I like Whitesnake
see,
and a lot of the other stuff that he's done.
I think I do too because I don't know. Maybe it's because of my age. Maybe it's because of I just automatically associate Whitesnake and the style of music that they are with to have that kind of like falsetto-y,
Right.
like higher pitch vocals. Whereas like I mean Led Zeppelin, I don't know, man. Like I guess going back to like I agree that someone else probably could have done it. Everyone contributes Jimmy Page being like the first guy to kind of use like a violin bow on his guitar. No, it wasn't, dude. It was the guy from the fucking Creation, Eddie Phillips. I can't remember his name. Eddie something. This like '60s like psych garage band called The Creation. That was the dude on record like years before Page ever did it. You know what I mean? And they were doing like similar heavy stuff at the time, but like they weren't, wrong place, wrong time. I guess you know what I mean?
Right. People weren't
But
ready for it.
yeah, but there was a lot of like those bands that I think I agree that it would have been someone. Maybe would go a slightly different direction or trajectory than Led Zeppelin influence, but there were so many bands pushing the envelope at that time. And, again, with my personal opinion aside, a lot crazier, a lot cooler, more inventive things
Right.
than Led Zeppelin at the time. And everyone's just like, copycats and stuff. The first like Led Zeppelin records are just fucking rip off of like old blues records anyway. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Well, I mean, like I said, that's where it started. I mean, shit, back when Elvis was coming out, like Colonel Parker and all those dudes, like just ripped off like the other artists around the time that couldn't afford to sue them, and it's like,
yeah,
all right, well, there you
yeah,
are. So it's been happening for a long time. I just don't think
yeah.
people like to hear bad things said about icons.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, The Who is like one of my favorite bands. Pete Townshend's one of my favorite guitar players, if not like my favorite guitar player. And I mean, one of my favorite Who songs is "Can't Explain." It's a huge like anthemic, like almost like punk, archetype type for like what punk was going to be. And Pete Townsend in an interview just said, I was just trying to rip off fucking Ray Davies and Dave Davies. I was trying to write a Kinks song.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, so, even back then, ripping off from their peers,
Right.
and creating something hugely successful on their own. Just trying to imitate their mates down the fucking block, which is kind of neat too. So,
Well,
I don't know.
now that we've thoroughly pissed off a lot of people, well, and
Fuck them.
yeah, pretty much. Well, I guess let's start. Now that we've alienated a lot of people, or have them being like, "All right, you dug yourself some fucking hole."
Oh, come on, man! It's all. Hey, listen.
It's all
There's
subject.
a lot of music I love that people don't dig. It's whatever you like. Who cares? We can all fucking have five at the end of the day.
Right. So I have the pleasure of talking to the Josh. I actually have never figured out how to pronounce it. Is it because growing up in the East Coast, I know there's like weird kind of enunciations. Like sometimes the H is pronounced, sometimes it's not. So how do you say your last name officially?
Milik.
Okay, I would have been close. I would have said Milik. Kind of like enunciated the I a little differently.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But you can find him on the various socials under the Josh. So I've always referred to you as the Josh. Why don't you give us a little backstory on who you are and what you do, so people can kind of figure that out if they don't know who you are preemptively.
Oh, okay. I am Josh Milik. I am some dork who likes to bum people out with my music tastes. In my very opinionated music opinions. I am the production manager of Killswitch Engage, and I've been on tour and touring with Killswitch Engage for the past 14 years. It's a long time.
You make me feel old
Yeah.
when I think of how long that band's been around.
Yeah. But I also guitar tech and stage manage, tour manage, just a jack of all trades of the road, I guess.
Is there anyone else that I think I had seen at one point you were tour managing Dropkick Murphys?
No, I was just guitar teching or
okay.
acoustic instrument teching, depending on the tour, bass tech.
Okay.
I was kind of like a fill-in dude whenever they needed someone. Dropkicks is interesting. I've known some of the guys in the band, like just from being from Massachusetts. Their drummer had a couple like old punk bands that my old bands would play with and stuff. So we knew each other, and a friend of mine was working for him, and they needed a guy to fill in for someone. So I jumped in a couple, I don't know how many years ago at this point, but now it's just like kind of one of the revolving dudes. Like, hey, dude, are you available? Can you jump in? Yeah, sure. What do I need? Bass, guitar, mandolin? What do you need me to do? But I
Um,
worked with those guys. I worked with Avenged for a while.
how long ago did you work with Avenged?
That was, I think, like 2000, maybe 11 to like 13 or something. Maybe 12 to 14. I can't really remember.
So it must have
Uh,
been kind of nice to do that run with them. What, like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago? It was
oh
Killswitch
yeah,
and
yeah. When we were on the that other
Volbeat,
tour,
and yeah,
and then we had the towards the end there was like the week. That was really cool, man, because I got to see a lot of old buddies and good friends on the road. It's just always kind of nice. That was a particularly rough tour, so seeing some smiling faces at the end was like really cool. They're like, "Oh, dude."
Joel was talking about that when, because I think that was the last time you guys came to Grand Rapids. So when we were hanging out with Joel, that was something he kind of brought up and was like, "Yeah, that tour was rough."
Yeah,
But
it was a bummer, but I mean, whatever, dude. They can't all be like rad, you know. So
so you had mentioned that you had played bands with some of the dudes, with the drummer from Dropkick. How long have you been playing music, and what got you into playing? Like, I assume you play. I think I saw you play guitar.
yeah, guitar and bass. Well, the drummer at Dropkick had an old punk band that my old bands would play shows together
Right.
around like New England and stuff. I play guitar the longest, bass the best. Kind of mess around with drums, banjo, mandolin, like kind of fudge
Excuse
my
me.
way through. Bless you. Piano and stuff. I grew up. My dad was a like a pretty rad guitar player and banjo player, but like super bluegrass. Um, and I always would just listen to him like play guitar when I was a kid, and then I wanted to learn how to play guitar because my parents would also listen to the oldie station in the
The best
car.
riffs.
Yeah, oh dude, and like so I felt like at an early age I would just hear on the radio like the Beatles and Chuck Berry and the Monkees and who else like Little Richard and all that kind of stuff. I would just hear all these like rad jams, and that's what I liked as a kid. So I was like, oh, I want to learn how to play that. And my dad was like, well, I'll get you a guitar. I don't know how to play any of that stuff, but I can show you some chords. You know what I mean? Uh, so I kind of started that, and then I think I remember like sixth grade, maybe fifth grade, sixth grade, like um, me and my buddy Tom, who played drums in Killswitch for a while. We grew up
Oh, Tom
like around.
Gomes or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. We grew up like skateboarding together, and I remember like reading like Thrasher magazine that would have interviews with all these crazy bands that I would like on the skate like me and Tom would rent skate videos at the local like VHS store, like video store.
Right.
And I remember they would have all this like crazy music I'd never heard of, and I was like, dude, what is this? Because like at that time, Van Halen's awesome. You're like, you know, late '80s. You're like a little kid, like, oh, this is so rad. But then I'm like, I've never heard anything like this. This is crazy. And I would wait to find the credits on the skate videos, like what was that? And it was bands Minor Threat, Black Flag, um, all this like stuff I'd never heard before, and then seeing like some of these names in like Thrasher magazine interviews and stuff, and I was like, well, I got to find out more about this stuff. And I remember I think it was maybe eighth grade. There was like Westfield State College is this school kind of by where the campus was kind of like where I grew up. And me and some friends would always go skateboarding there. There's like a cool parking lot, some stairs, like benches and stuff. And I remember me and my friend Mark, we were like, shitty kids, and there was a Jeep in the parking lot, and there was like a bunch of tapes, and we just went and we stole all these tapes out of this Jeep, and we went back to his house to listen to them. And there was the Buzzcocks and the Clash, and then the Sex Pistols. I was like, "What is all this crazy stuff? Oh man, we hit the gold mine, treasure chest!" So, and that's why I started listening to it, and then Some kid's older brother gave me like an MOD like tape, and I was like, whoa, this is even faster and thrashier, you know. So it kind of just like went from there, and kids in the neighborhood all started playing guitar. That was like what was cool to do, and then we all kind of got together and would make noise with each other. And I don't know, I found some kid on the bus that knew how to play guitar, and I was like, hey man, well I like Primus and the Sex Pistols. Maybe I'll mow a bunch of lawns and buy a bass. So like I mowed lawns for a summer and bought like a crappy bass that looked like Sid Vicious's, and I was like, no one else plays bass, I'll play bass. Let's start a band. You know what I mean?
What was the first cover you tried to figure out? Do you remember?
Yeah, probably the Sex Pistols version of the Monkees song "Stepping Stone."
Okay, interesting. It always seems like, because like as I've gotten older and tried jamming with people, everyone's always like, "Oh, just start playing a riff," and I'm always like, "Why don't we work on a cover first before we figure out like?" Because like going based off of your influences will probably be a lot easier to then once you kind of jam on some covers figure out like where you land musically, but everyone's always like just start playing riffs. Actually, the funny thing, the riff I always play that no one ever seems to know, which speaking of skate videos and all that kind of stuff, I always play the riff to Bite at You Scum, and no one ever seems to know what it is, and they're like, that's a badass riff. I'm like, yeah, because it's a fucking G.G. Allin riff, and it's so fucking basic and overplayed.
Yeah.
Apparently still people don't know that song and don't know what it is, so it's like, all right, that's the easiest riff I can play, and you can figure out whatever it is you want to do with it.
Yeah, right.
Or whatever. So
that's the thing. Like, I think if you can't, like, if you, hey man, like, even before band practice, like, hey, what do you know how to play? Let's try to play together as like people. Like, let's not try to figure out a riff together and you know whatever. It's like, hey, how about we just pick one song that's already written and just kind of jams, because you know people are going to play differently. It's gonna, you know, you got to figure out how it's going to work, and even if you can play together as humans, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, can we play together, or is this just like a waste of time? You know what I mean?
Skid Row. That was a Skid Row joke. Waste of time.
Yeah, dude, right? That's another. I love that band.
Yeah, exactly. But no, so you started jamming, playing around locally. So this is around 8th grade. So like, I'm assuming high school, you did like the typical high school thing, had a band, probably didn't play. I always think it's weird. I was actually talking to Fallon from Kitty, and you know they got signed when they were like, I think she said by the time they were signed or playing around, they were like 14, playing at bars. Yeah. I was like, that shit would never happen nowadays. Like the fact that it happened even back then, like, still shocks me. But it's always interesting to think now, and it's gotten worse, at least in my area. I can't really speak on out there in Massachusetts or anything, but actually I sort of can, because I grew up in Delaware and there was like fucking nowhere to play. So yeah. How hard was it? Was there really much of a scene like to play around in bands, like in high school bands and stuff, like back when you were in high school, or what was the Massachusetts scene like back then?
No, I mean it was awesome. Like, we were lucky enough that we had a really, like, Western Mass hardcore punk scene was awesome. Like, there was always somewhere, whether it was like a basement or a VFW or who knows where, you know, there was always something happening. There was I remember the big deal was if you played Pearl Street in Northampton, that was like awesome. You know what I mean? Because that was like a real venue, a real club. I would go see so many awesome shows there. I played so many awesome shows there.
What was the size of that club? Because I hear Josta, whenever he gets to people that played around the East Coast quite a bit, they always talk about that venue. How big is that venue? Just because I have no frame of reference.
There was an upstairs and a downstairs. I think like the upstairs was like the big room, and man, maybe that's like
1,200,
maybe.
Okay.
And then the basement was like a fucking shitty little dungeon. that was where all the best shows were. You know, okay. Like that's, I don't even know, maybe 600.
I was gonna say, it sounds like it would have been like a 400 cap room, just packed wall to wall.
Oh,
kind
of
one of those venues. Okay.
Yeah, it was like in the summer it was like a friggin' sweat fest. It was disgusting. In the winter it was like cold. Freezing cold.
Sounds like Harpo's.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. It's total that style, just like grimy and crappy, but like awesome. You know what I mean? Like, okay. But there was always shows happening, and then you know, and kids were booking shows. That was the great thing. It was like I it was just awesome. Like, you know, holy crap, there's a show happening in someone's backyard, and there people would show up, and there'd be multiple bands playing. You know, or people would have shows in basements, and that was like it was great. You know, if you could actually play a real venue, that was rad. And we did many times in a bunch of rad places that have all come and gone now. But like, it was just cool. There was so many people putting on shows. That you could have the pick of like, and if your band was halfway decent, you know what I mean, you were playing a bunch, which is rad.
Excuse me. Try to get a time frame for this because I'm really terrible at saying this all the time, but I think we're roughly around the same age. I'm going to be 33 in a few months, so you are
38.
Okay, so not quite, but all right. So this still would have been mid 90s, late 90s ish, but when this is all going on. So I mean, at that time, you know, you're living in Massachusetts and you're talking about a scene, and we kind of had it going on here in Michigan because I'd moved out here at that point around the mid 90s. And noticed that there was something going on in like the Grand Rapids and Detroit areas, and bands. There was just kind of like a sense of camaraderie and a bigger sense of scene. And I definitely know that was going on in Massachusetts, unbeknownst to me at the time. But being able to look back and all the bands that sprung around, what was the Massachusetts area really like? Like, as someone who was actually able to live it and be around during that, I mean, you kind of just spoke on it, you know, that there was a lot of camaraderie going to, like, you know, backyard shows, basement shows, and whatever. But did it feel like there was something happening on a that would become, you know, a bigger thing, even if it was just on a local level? Or,
I mean, yeah, it was kind of weird because like it came to a point where the scene kind of like it like split a little bit, because it was like you would have like ska bands playing and metal bands and like crust punk bands and like straight edge hardcore bands all on the same bill, you know, and it was kind of rad. Yeah, so it's just like a, you know, any given time, and there would be like, you know, whatever band there, but then like, I mean, I guess maybe towards like mid late night. I don't know, man. I'm probably incorrect, but I'm gonna say like 96, maybe 97, maybe a little earlier. At least it seemed like everything was kind of split, and you'd have like there was like these branches of like, okay, these kids are kind of going more towards the more metally side, where like metalcore was starting to come on the scene,
right?
Or like moshy, heavier stuff. And then you had the kids in the bands that were going more towards just like punk rock, faster, snottier, you know. And then there became kind of like a almost, I guess, like jocks versus nerds,
right?
Kind of like weird, like wedge, you know what I mean? And there you'd have like these like hardcore kids that were like the more moshy dudes and everything, and then you'd have like kids that were like the more like
punk rock kids,
punkier kids, and then they wouldn't. There was like, it just seemed like there wasn't like this like camaraderie anymore. There was kind of like a divide. You know what I mean? It's like if it came down to it, I imagine like in a pickle, they would all unite against the fucking greater evil. But it was weird. I definitely went, you know, more towards the punk like side of things. You know, I was like straight edge, like youth crew, like nerd, full on. But I hung out with all like the skins and punks and like, you know, hooligan kids and stuff like that. So that was kind of, I mean, there was times when like some of my friends that went the more metally way, it's like, it was like a weird, like we lost, not that we lost touch or anything like that, but we wouldn't hang out in the same groups anymore.
Did you feel like a little betrayed? Like, oh, it sucks, I can't hang out with you now as much.
Well, I mean, not necessarily betrayed, but it's just like, man, you're running with a fucking loser crew now. You know what I mean? And like, I'm sure that my buds were saying that like, what are we fucking hang out with these fucking dirtbags for? So, you know, but that's just like adolescent nonsense. You know what I mean? Which is, I don't know. I've been out of the active roster of Western Mass, like, you know, a participant in that for like, so, I mean, I don't even live in Massachusetts anymore.
Right.
I have like friends in like current bands and everything. And I know that the Western Mass hardcore scene is like, from what I hear, still pretty strong and awesome. And there's a lot of rad bands going on, but I definitely don't, not to be the old guy, but like it was even in its like crappy times, it was pretty fucking awesome when I
Right.
was a kid and I don't know. I'm lucky to be a part of something like a scene that was, for all intents and purposes, pretty fucking positive and you know what I mean, helped create something like awesome for a lot of other bands. And like you look what came out of it. Killswitch Engage, fucking Shadows Fall,
Oh,
Unearth, all those dudes like came from
you had
this.
Hatebreed not too far away.
Yeah, dude. Because where I grew up in Western Mass is like we're so close to the Connecticut border. We had perfect Hatebreed, all these awesome Connecticut bands that were essentially kind of lumped in with the whole like New England like
Right.
hardcore scene. We all we're all from the same fucking drinking water. You know what I mean? So there's definitely something like super special happening, I think, in like the early 90s to like early 2000s was like a fucking hotbed of
Yep.
awesome activity for like punk music, hardcore music, metal music. I mean metalcore. I mean that essentially kind of started there, didn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
From
I mean,
my knowledge, I'm
I
not
was
like a
gonna say,
metalcore
yeah. I
dude,
mean,
but
and then you even had some of the stuff coming from like, I mean, I know not all of them like Converge from Virginia or whatever, but I was gonna say like
no, Converge is
Converge.
Boston.
Well, because Kurt now has a studio down in.
Oh right, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so in my head, I still think of them as just that's where they are. But I was gonna say, and then you had like even New York with like shit, Every Time I Die, and all the Trustkill bands and all that kind of stuff being able to probably come through quite often as well, just due to the proximity. So I mean, it's like just the East Coast as a whole seemed like it kind of there's a lot going on pretty much right after I left. So it's funny that I love all this shit now, and it's like, man, I could have been so close to it initially.
Yeah.
But
There's definitely the Eastern Seaboard, was kind of like a like I said, a hotbed for music and that style of music. You know what I mean? So many awesome bands came out from that area of the country at that particular time.
now with high school ending, though, were you like one of the handful of people that would just kind of like was like, well, I'm in a band. Let's now I don't have to go to school. Let's just start touring and do that, or was it more like I'm gonna go to school and kind of slowly phase out of the band thing? What was the route for you?
I tried.
Which
To
one? Both?
I tried to do the like, hey, let's just fucking tour our faces off and let's just like do I wanted to do I was in a million different bands and I was like one of them is going to do something, you know what I mean, and it was just like I
I feel like
have
that
to
was a
like
mentality people had back then, and they don't have it anymore.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure. And I was like, at that point, like after high school, like I was like, all right, cool, well I went to a vocational high school for graphic arts, so I was like, well, in the meantime I'm just going to try to get like a printing job or like a graphic design job, uh, because I need money, I need a job, and whatever band I was in at the time wasn't ready to actually
Commit.
full on go on tour and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And it was kind of just like a situation of it was like me and maybe one other person in the band were like, hey, let's do this. Everyone else was kind of just like, I don't know, blah blah blah, and it's like, man, we're playing a bunch of shows like every weekend. We having stuff going on, recording stuff. It's super fun, and then just like one of those, not everyone was on the same kind of page deals, and it kind of just started falling apart. And so then I was like, oh well, fuck, this isn't this. Trying to start another band, trying to do this, and everything, and then I think it was like at the time my buddy Tom was he was already playing drums in Killswitch. He was playing drums in Aftershock.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And then he left for tour one time. They went to like Japan or something. And
Aftershock, or was it Killswitch?
With Aftershock.
Okay.
I think we might have been roommates at the time. I don't remember. And he came back. I was like, dude, how's that? I've never known anyone that's gone outside of the fucking country to. Whoa, that's so crazy. My mind was fucking blown. and he was saying how cool it was and all this, that, the other thing. And then he joins Killswitch, and then my band wasn't doing anything at the time. Like say if like a weekend, he's like, "Oh, we got a weekend. You want to come in?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, dude. I'll hang out with you guys." And I just hop in the van, um, and just do a weekender of local shows with them. Come back and then hang out and go to work on Monday, and then my band was still kind of putzing around at the time, and then they did Ozfest, and Tom was like, "Hey, dude, you want to come on tour? I need like someone to help me with my drums and shit." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, man. Like they're in our living room. I fucking jam on them all the time. I know how to set them up. Let's get weird." And then jumped on tour with those guys in Ozfest '03 as like a full like just for a summer. I turned down I got offered a job to be the head of a graphics department at some company, and I was like, you know what? This sounds like a great idea, but I'm gonna go run away with the circus for the summer. And if the job is still here when I come back, it's mine. If it's not, well, then I'll figure something out.
Right.
And then fast forward to today, and here this is where I'm at.
I guess something because I thought you had been with the band for a while. I just didn't know the connection. Wasn't. I almost would have figured with the graphic design because I did see you had done graphic design for something. So I almost figured maybe it was that you knew Mike somehow and kind of got in going that route. But what's interesting is that you got in through Tom and started pretty much right when the band. I mean, I'm trying to think that would have been '03. So yeah, more or less since the beginning of the band, as far as on a national level.
Yeah.
I mean, having been in a band that just never could kind of get serious and kind of get over the hump, what was it like to be able to see a band that kind of had gone all in and see the rise of the band? Because I mean, at that point, I wouldn't say they were super huge, but I mean, getting on Ozfest and stuff like that was a benchmark for a solid metal band to even if it was just second stage opening up, whatever. That was like the tour you wanted to be on if you were a metal band.
Yeah.
So I mean, what was that kind of like to be able to see that firsthand, especially with a friend / roommate?
It was awesome. Like I knew Mike from Overcast days. My old bands would play shows with them all the time. And I knew Joel just because Joel and I grew up in the same town, and he was a guitar teacher at the guitar store I went to when I had to buy strings and shit.
So he's been doing that for a while then too. Then
what's
the
that?
teaching. I said so he's been doing the teaching for a while then as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, back in the day, I just knew like Joel and Adam used to give
Lessons.
lessons at like performance music in our town. So I kind of I knew who Adam was from oh, he's the kid who was in Aftershock. Oh, he's a teacher now. Da 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 da. So it's all familiar faces. But like Tom was really the dude that I was like buds with for real at the time. And it was cool, man. Like seeing that, like it was like, man, you guys like it's so rad that everyone is like focused on this. You know what I mean? Like, and just being like, I remember talking to like Mike and stuff, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, when we did this, we're like, all right, cool, we're all gonna quit our jobs, and this is our job now." And it's like that's like the fucking coolest thing in the world. You know what I mean? At least to me, it was. It was like that's it. This is you guys get it. You're all you're all firing on the same fucking cylinder here. Like this is awesome. You know what I mean? Like, and it was neat to see. Oh, cool. Like, hey, last time, first time we were in this particular place, we played this like club, and this is how many people were there. The second time we're in this place, we're playing this different venue, and this how many people there. And the venues got bigger, and the crowds got bigger, and the tours got longer, and the stages got bigger, and it's just crazy. Like a couple of times, I remember like, what venue is it? I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was like some place. I remember we were there, like this place is so huge. Holy shit, this is the place I've ever seen in my life, And then like we were there a couple of years ago, and I was like, God damn it! Look how fucking there's not room for anything. You know what I mean? And I just remember being like, I remember when this particular stage and this venue was like the biggest venue I had ever been in, let alone seen a band in or my friend's band play. You know what I mean? Like, So it's pretty neat, man, to be along for the ride, for all that kind of stuff, and seeing the changes, and I don't know, it's just weird for sure. It's cool. I dig it.
Now you had gone, you said initially to be Tom's sort of tech, probably
Yeah.
also doing merch and a slew of other things because at that point you probably don't have enough money to pay an individual to do all those things at the time. So you probably
Oh,
were the jack of all trades for all that stuff. Being on something like an Ozfest, where I mean, yes, it's basically a like a big camp thing, like where people just run around and act like jackasses and stuff like that. Like I've had a friend who tour managed and did teching for a band for a year, and then got to go a couple of dates on that, and it was just like this seems like a lot of fun, but day in and day out probably is fucking brutal. Just your liver can only take so much, and being hungover, sitting in the sun, and doing all this shit probably would suck. And
yeah.
so thinking about all that, was it going into it just to kind of have fun for a summer? What was it like to be able to see some of these other bands, some of these other legacy bands at this point, and seeing like how their techs and stuff like that were doing, like that it can be a career and that all that, like, because at that point, are you thinking like this is something? I mean, I know you kind of said like if the job that you would turn down was there later that you would, or if it was there you would take it. But was it when you kind of saw that this could be something that you could do? Was that something more or less that you started thinking more about doing as a career, or at least until it no longer is an available option for you?
Yeah. I mean, I never really thought about it as like anything other than like, oh, I'm just going, like I said, run away with the circus with my buddy for the summer and just help out and just be on tour, just be like an extra set of hands for whatever, you know what I mean? Um, and it's like, hey, cool, I get to see like awesome bands every night, you know what I mean? Like, this is cool. I'm not gonna complain about that, you know what I mean? Um, but you know, it's you quickly realize that it's like, oh, this is like a serious deal. This is like legit. Um, you know, it's not sex, drugs, and rock and roll and all the party lifestyle that like fucking Motley Crue documentaries want you to um or Motley Crue videos, I should say.
Oh, that's in the book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's like it's cool. It's like, oh wow, man, this is like hard work and you bust your ass. People are having a great time, but and this is like this could be a legitimate thing. There's people that like, holy crap, look at that dude. He's like fucking old as shit, and he's like out there like mixing a band or setting up amps or doing whatever. I was like, wow, that's cool, man. This is like a whole community and like a livelihood. That's kind of neat. And then towards the end, it was like the end of Ozfest rather, there was like another tour like straight away. You know what I mean? And when I came home, I had a little bit of time off, and that job wasn't available. And I was like, oh crap, well, start figuring stuff out. And the guys were like, hey, well, we got this tour booked, man. You want to, do you want to jump on? We still want you. We would love to have your help, blah, blah, blah. I was like, sure. And I remember like Shadows Fall called me up. I was like, hey, what are you doing? Like Jason Bittner called me and he was like, hey, dude, like, are you home? Because we need a dude. And I was like, wow. I wasn't even thinking that I was going to do this ever again. And I have people calling me, asking me if I can come on tour with them and help them out and work for them. And I was like, cool. Okay, maybe I don't need to look for a job just yet, and I'll go do this tour and I'll do that one and just kind of feel it out. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then it was just kind of happened like that. And after that, it was just wow. Okay, I guess this is my deal. And then when Tom wasn't in Killswitch anymore, and Justin started, he's like, well, we still want you. You want to tour with us. I think I was like helping Mike at the time with like bass stuff and everything, just because he ended up getting like two cabinets and more things, and blah 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 blah. And then the guys had signings and all that other stuff. So I was like, cool. Well, if I'm setting up drums, man, okay. Oh, you guys got to do an interview or signing. I'll just take care of the bass today too, or the guitar. You know what I mean? And it kind of just like bled into me doing a bunch of other stuff, and then slowly but surely, things just I started just taking on more responsibility and stuff because it's like, well, fuck, like we have no one else is like doing this, and this shit's got to get done. Ah, crap, it's gonna screw my day if this bit doesn't get done, and no one's gonna do it, so I'll just do it, and then next thing you know, I'm fucking doing everything. You know what I mean?
Was
But
it
that's cool because it makes me it's a valuable thing, you know, because now it's like I can do what do you need if someone,
right?
you know, if I'm having someone from another band call me saying, hey, we need someone, it's like, oh, cool, well, I know how to do that. I'll go do that for you. You know what I mean? So that was kind of like a quick figure out. I you know I if I figure out if I can do each one of these things fairly proficient, that makes me more useful, and you know people are more job opportunities, I suppose.
With starting off, kind of, did you have any training previously other than just playing instruments yourself, like learning how to tech in the facet that a tech needs to be at the level that you're doing things now? Because I mean, some people when they think of a tech, like I mean, having booked shows and stuff like that, and having friends who play in bands, it's like sometimes their girlfriend comes in, and it's like, oh, this is my tech, or some random friend who's like, oh, this is my tech, and it's like, yeah, why don't you go ahead and tune that instrument? Like, let me see you. Oh, that's a Floyd Rose. Now let me see you go ahead and tune that up.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
bitch. And it just seems like you said you just kind of started just to as a thing to hang out with some friends and whatever and help them out. But I mean, there is a point where you have to start learning how to do like the ins and outs of the guitars and the equipment itself. Was that ever something that you actually had ever had any interest in or had knowledge on prior to hitting the road with Killswitch and then subsequently the other bands that you worked with, or was it just something you kind of learned trial and error and all that kind of stuff?
I never had any like professional or proper like training or anything on that. Most of it is just um, growing up playing in bands and doing my own thing and being too broke to like fix my guitar when I break it. I mean, I was a dickhead when I used to play all, in bands and stuff, like stage diving with my guitar, my bass, and like I mentioned Pete Townsend before our show or something, I'd watch like a bunch of like Who live footage and get all like amped up and then start smashing my guitar against like my amp or the mic stand, and I'd like beat the
You were a
crap out of my
sound
guitar.
guy's dream.
Oh, dude, I was just a jerk. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like take off my bass and like throw it into the drums and like just do all sorts of dumb things. So my guitars were like pretty abused. So if I would break something, wouldn't necessarily have the loot to go bring it to the guitar shop and have a guy fix it. So I was like, oh fuck, I got to figure this one out. You know what I mean? And then when I was something that I had to pay someone to fix, I would always try to like, hey man, what are you doing there? Like, there's this dude Jose who worked at Performance Music, was this dude like wicked luthier. Anytime I'd bring my guitar to him, like when it was something I couldn't do myself, he'd be like, oh, you're such an asshole, man. Why do you have such a nice guitar? You fucking break it. And he'd always yell at me, but I'd always like pick his brain and sit in, and he's like, "This is what you got to do, and this is why you're a dickhead." But he'd kind of, show me like a tip or, "Hey, next time, all you got to do is bing bang boom." You know what I mean? So it's like little things like that, but just fixing my own stuff, and then mostly just I don't want to say trial and error, but like kind of looking at it like everyone gets those like, well, I don't know about everybody, but you can get those like Dan Earlywine, whatever, like how to make your guitar play awesome. You know what I mean? You get
Right.
them like Barnes and Noble and like, oh, cool. So my guitar sounds like a pile of crap when I'm playing it. How am I going to fix my own guitar? So you like read up on that stuff. So it's kind of just like that. And then, it's the stakes are a little bit higher when you have to do it for someone else's guitar and not your own. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was a little, just knowing I was like, I know how to do this. I just haven't done it yet. So I'm going to do it now. And, trial by fire. I'm lucky enough it always worked out. But
Just seems
that
like
was
a
the early stages. Now I'm a seasoned apprentice.
um, sliding more into the production side of things. I guess I wouldn't quite say it's tour managing, but I mean, having seen your little workspace, like you definitely keep things on track like a tour manager would, as far as like, okay, like this is when this band's on, you get off, blah blah blah, like keeping track of everything to just make sure that everything runs as smoothly as possible. How does Have you enjoyed that? Basically being like someone's babysitter, making sure that everything goes right? Because I know from what little bit of the industry that I've worked in and know people in, you're probably going to be one of the first ones bitched at if something doesn't go right, whether it be from the band or from the venue or whoever. So, I mean, that's a lot of responsibility, especially at the level that you guys have been at currently, or that you're at now. That I feel like that's probably not something that a lot of people would want to put on themselves.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's, I mean, some days I hate it for sure, but I mean, I think that's like would be with anyone's job, for the most part. But I definitely, I like it a lot. I think it's fun. Some days more so than others, but with Kill Switch anyway, it's like production manage and stage manage. So with the stage managing aspect of it, it's if a lot of times if it's just left up to like with each band trying to get on and off stage with like no real guidance or something like that, or like someone standing there being like, guys, tapping the watch, like the shows can get like really out of hand like really quickly, off time schedule and stuff. And a lot of these venues will have, like, if it's a 4 band bill and you have like an 11 o'clock curfew or an 11:30 curfew, if you go over curfew, you get charged. That means like the band, yeah, lots of crazy fines, and it's just like a pain in the butt. So um usually the first couple of days you kind of like, hey guys, this is what's going on. I always try to have a clock on stage, like, check it out. Do you know your set time? If you don't, I have it written down here for you. Make sure you stay on time. If you need to know what time it is, look to your left or look to your right. There's a clock there. I don't care if you go on late, just don't come off late, kind of deal, And
Right.
most bands are like cool with it and rad, and everyone is like is parties with it. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's a little bit stressful um, than others. Like when you have a lot of stuff on stage, and the set change time is like, you only have 15 minutes between bands A and B, and you got to get all of A's stuff off and then some of B's set up before they can even go. And so there's definitely like a stress level to it. And sometimes I wish I didn't wear so many hats, because I mean, there's times when it's just like I'm the first one in the building or in the venue in the morning, sometimes like at 8:30 in the morning, trying to plan out, okay, well, from the production side of things, I know, like, I designed this Kill Switch stage. This is what the guys are going to look. This is what the stage looks like. These are the lights we're using. These are the backdrops, staging, product, whatever we're going to do. This is our setup. Now, I know we're going to be in different style of venues every day, so I need to be able to say, cool, today's stage is X by Y. I know our production has to fit in this much space. I know we have 3 other bands that need to fit in here with us. How can I set up our stage to make it look as close as it can be to what our big stage is supposed to look like, and still have room for everyone else to set up and have everyone have a halfway decent, the best show that they possibly can.
Right.
And that so I'm up doing that, and then sometimes by the time Kill Switch is over and we've packed the trailer and all that other stuff, I'm getting into the bus at like 1:30 in the morning. I haven't showered. I'm going to have a beer and then try to fall asleep by like 2:30, and then I'm going to be up in the building at 8:30 the next morning. You know what I mean? Like, it's, if I didn't have to do all that stuff, it'd be kind of nice. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like there's like this weird kind of pride, I guess, about it, that it's like, hey man, this is like something that I helped create, or this is my creation at this point. It's obviously it's Kill Switch stuff, but it's like, this is my idea for them that they like and they want to go for and that they're stoked on, and I got to just present it every day to them and the fans more importantly. But I also have to be conscious enough that all these other bands have a good show, because we've been in the situation. I'm not going to mention any names, but we've been on tours when we've not been the headliner band. We've been an opening act, and we've been
you get like garbage space,
treated like garbage, or given like, hey, cool, so you're gonna have to set up your drums, and your drums are at the very end of the stage. There's like no room for anybody, and it's like, well, if you guys just moved this one thing, like that would take 2 seconds. I'll even help you do it. We would have so much more room for everyone on the stage, and it wouldn't affect like the headliner show.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, blah, 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 and you get that like kind of like just dickhead, tough guy, stubborn kind of attitude. And those are things that I learned from like early on with like the earlier touring days of Killswitch. Is like, yo, if I was in that spot, I would never do that. Fuck that. That guy's a jerk. You know what I mean? I would never treat anybody like that. So that's something like I always try to bear in mind when Killswitch is in the headlining spot, and like we have other people we got to worry about. So it's just like every day I'm not only worrying about Killswitch in my world, in my crew's world, I'm also thinking about everyone else on the tour, which is even more stressful sometimes, But I think the cool thing is like the reward is like, even if it's a band that we're on tour with that I musically I don't care for or I don't like, you know what I mean? Just the fact that like they're having a rad show. If I was in their position and someone was, how would I want to be treated as an opening band?
Right.
Some people are their expectations are a little bit high, and it's like at the end of the day, dude, sometimes you got to remember, don't be too big for your britches. You're, one of four at this point.
Right. So, I was actually really impressed with how fast the setup teardown was on that Killthorax tour, because it's not like Killswitch had, Jesus Christ, Anthrax had a really small setup. Like, I was impressed at how fast that came down to set up for Killswitch, at least at our show. I don't know if that alternated each night with it being a co-headline or if Killswitch always went last, but it's always impressive when you see two bands on a co-headline run in the traditional sense like that, where it may flip-flop, and seeing both bands have all the production they want and being able to set up and tear down and be like, that's a crew collectively, whether it's one total crew for the whole tour or two separate crews working together. It always baffles me, because it's like, you get doing local shows and shit like that. It's like, you have a fucking 15-watt amp, you have, like, something else, like, you have, like, the tiniest amount of gear. Why does it take you fucking 30 minutes? Why does it take a local band 30 minutes to get off stage when there's, like, national-level bands with 4 dudes for their crew who are able to tear down so much shit? It just boggles my mind sometimes. And to see something like that, like, very recently, like, was kind of a walk away for me, where I was like, wow, that was a really fucking quick turnover. And it's not like Anthrax had, like, hardly anything on the stage. Like, that was a pretty solid stage production on their end.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's exactly the point about stage managing and stuff like that. Left, because there's no one there being like, guys, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, get your fucking combo off the stage. You know what I mean? And like, let's get on with it. This Killthrax tour, man, I can't like say enough good things about it. It was such a, like, that's the way I think
big tour should go.
Yeah, well,
didn't seem like there were any egos or anything like that at all.
No, like that's a proper co-headline tour. We've done ones in the past, and it's just like there's a definite headliner and there's a definite main support. It's billed as co-headliner, but it clearly is not.
Right.
This one completely was. Both crews, like, I mean, I can speak for the Killswitch crew, just because it's my crew, but the Anthrax crew too. Every single one of those dudes was super solid, super awesome. Everyone helped each other. It didn't matter who was closing that night. Everyone worked together, and that was like perfect, I think it was pretty apparent. I mean, some venues were really challenging. Others were a cakewalk for set changes and load-ins and load-outs. But the really important thing I thought was when the first day one, it became completely apparent that, like, hey, this is possible for both bands to have what they want on stage, and both opening bands to have a halfway decent enough
Space.
performance space. Um, but it's going to be an all hands on deck effort for some of these changeovers to make this possible. And everyone was just like, cool, well, we're all on board because we got to be, and there was an awesome camaraderie on this one that I think if it wasn't there and if everyone wasn't helping, it would have been a real struggle, but we were lucky enough that it was so awesome. And, Anthrax, like you said, man, their stage setup was like,
and like catwalks and all that kind of stuff.
Catwalks and a lot of stuff on it, you know what I mean? Which was just like, it looked rad, but it was a lot of stuff to move on set change. And it wasn't just like little easy 1-man, 2-man things, like, multiple people picking stuff up. And, it was awesome. Those guys, kicked ass. I would say the Killthrax tour is probably my most favorite tour we've done in a very long time, which is like awesome. And I hear there's rumors of a round 2, but
it looked like it did really well. I mean, I know as far as booking stuff, I know like when a tour does really well in A markets, although I know you guys play Detroit the next night, so I was gonna say I know like we're a B market, but typically if you do really well in your A markets on a tour, obviously people see it, want more of it, and then it hits the B in the secondary markets and so forth. So it'd be rad if it came back. I mean, obviously I know it probably wouldn't come to Grand Rapids again, but it'd probably go to like Battle Creek or something. But it was a good tour. Like I said, that was like something I walked away with, just being like, man, like all these bands were super professional. Everything ran really smooth. Didn't seem to be any egos. Like a friend of Willie that was TMing for Anthrax actually does stuff for a band from around the Michigan area, Wilson. And so it was weird kind of to see him outside of the Wilson camp. But I know he was like, hey, I'd really love to help you, but I got shit to do. And it's like, yeah, okay, see you later, bye. But that's kind of the catch-22 about having friends do tour. Is like you see them for 10 seconds, and it's like, hey, that was great seeing you.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, one of the funnier things looking back, I was looking at some of the videos I had taken from that show. It's just kind of, and I understand this is your everyday, so the like stoked level is pretty much gone, especially toward the end of a tour. Just watching you, like the band's killing it, everyone's like crowd surfing, moshing, and all this shit, and you're just like, yep, my phone. Like it was very amusing to me to like look at you just look so nonchalant about like a metal show happening like 4 feet away from you.
Yeah. How much is that time left? I gotta go to bed. I'm tired.
What has been the biggest thing that you've learned in tour, like in the facet of touring that you've done over the last 14 years? Like what's been something that like maybe you didn't know initially, but now like after touring for so long, like has been like the biggest takeaway for you? Typically I would say it would be just don't be a dick, but
yeah,
outside of that.
I don't know, man. That's kind of a tough one. I guess like something I don't know, maybe it's a combination of just getting older too, but being able to see the world and being able to see how other people live, and I guess I don't know, maybe like just kind of being a little bit more appreciative and I don't know, maybe I don't think mindful is the right word. I guess appreciative of where you're at, like, or where I'm at. You know what I mean? And I guess it sounds shitty, like not to say I'm an intolerant person, but just tolerant of others and customs and everything else, and I can find annoying traits about everybody and everything, including myself, but just kind of realize exactly. But just realizing it's like, hey man, like it takes fucking all different kinds, you know what I mean? And kind of, I guess, learning from every interaction I have, like you said, just besides, don't be a dick, you know what I mean? I guess learning how I want to be and how I don't want to be would be I've seen road dogs that have been in the game for a long time, and they're super awesome people. And I've seen real bitter people. So you know what I mean. Trying to take a little bit of lesson from everybody in everything I can, I suppose. I
What's
guess.
been what's been the and I mean this is going to be really hard to answer. I understand because there's probably just 14 years worth of experiences, but what's been one of the things that over the course of touring that you're just like, holy shit, this just happened, or I got to do this, whatever that is. What's like one of your
Um,
biggest like memories of being on the road?
um, being in a cage in the middle of the ocean off of South Africa and having great white sharks like swim up to me and like smash into the like cage, like being inches away from a fucking apex predator. You know what I mean? Like,
Not Randy Orton.
no, not that one. RKO out of nowhere.
No, I think we just became best friends. I love sharks,
Yeah,
and just saw the trailer for what is it, 47 feet or 47 depth or whatever.
yeah.
Have you seen that?
No.
It's a movie with Mandy Moore and some other chick, and they go basically same thing. Like they're in a shark cage. Something happens, the cage gets snipped from the thing, and they drop down to the ocean floor.
Oh
And
my
there's just a shitload of sharks, and they only have enough like oxygen to last for a certain amount of time.
god. Oh, brutal.
So I'm pretty amped on that. And then actually, it's funny. I was texting Tyler, Joel's brother, because like we're both
Yeah.
big into shark movies. So I was like, "Dude, have you seen this? This fucking looks sweet." And he goes, "Yeah." He's like, "Actually, I saw the new trailer for Jason Statham movie for Meg," and I was like, "Meg, like the Peter Benchley book from like the late '80s about
Yeah.
megalodons?" And he's like, "Yeah, I guess." And I was like, "That's gonna be rad, or it's gonna be fucking terrible. It doesn't matter. I fucking love shark movies." So
Yeah.
like I said, growing up and out east, I have a healthy fear of sharks because I know they fucking exist and they're there.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, like I think I would love to do that, but I would be like scared shitless. That's something like because I feel like having watched so many horrible B movie shark movies that I'm just like something stupid would happen and it would happen to me. Like, oh, your oxygen tank doesn't work, so you're gonna like fucking blow up or die, or like, oh, the shark tank's not secure or whatever. Like something's gonna happen, and I'll be like, it's just easier if I eliminate myself from that position.
Yeah.
But that would have been scary and exciting all at the same time. Probably would have shit my pants.
Oh, dude, it was fucking terrifying. But like it was, it's like
Did they
you just
have you
kind of got
feed it,
there
or
and it's
like
like,
was there like bait like nearby so you could watch them feed, or was it just them swimming around?
uh, it was, well, the cage is like draped over the side of the boat,
Right.
and you get in it, and then there's the one of the guys on the boat has like a big hook with like a chunk of fucking tuna or something on it, and he like chucks it out and kind of like essentially fishes for the shark to kind of bring him close to the gate, and then he reels in the chunk of meat like
In front of you
right to the
guys.
gate, and then the fucking shark's like coming up, and then the guy's like trailing it along the side, and the shark's like coming against he's like thrashing around trying to bite the fucking meat on the hook, and he's like smacking into the cage, and I'm like, this is insane. This is like inches away from my hands. There's this giant fucking 12-foot monster, like fucking dinosaur, like like that is like pure insanity. I mean, it takes your breath away for sure. There's no doubt about it. It is fucking terrifying, but like awesome. You know what I mean? At the same time, it's like, I mean, I guess I never have and probably never would skydive, but I would kind of assimilate it to like the same kind of feeling. You know what I mean? Like, just like this is so fucking crazy and intense and exhilarating. You know what I mean? And it's just,
I feel like that definitely would be an experience where, excuse me, makes you realize how small we are as a human race
oh
in the
yeah,
grand scheme of everything.
yeah,
Although that's been something I've been thinking of since I went and saw Alien Covenant last night, like because there's a like little bit of that going on in it, and
yeah,
definitely trailing off of Prometheus, like with the fact that like humans were created by these beings and that we weren't wanted anymore, so they figured out a way to kill us, and it's like, all right, so there's that. So I've been thinking a lot more about the bigger scale of everything, whether it be related to a shitty, like, well, not shitty, but like a sci-fi horror movie and things like that. Because skydiving is another one of those things where it sounds interesting in theory. I would love to do it,
Yeah.
but I think I've always said, like, if I had to do it, like, I'd just be like, put me near the door, attach me to that person that will have to do it for me. Don't tell me that it's coming. Just literally, like,
Yeah.
open the door and have the dude jump, and I'll be like, I guess I'm doing this now.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
there's no way I could willingly be like, all right, let's position myself up there, and then here's the door open, and on three we're going. It's like, nah, fuck that. Just open the thing and fucking jump, and I'm attached to you, so I have to go.
Yeah.
And then I think I would, like, after I freak out for about 10, 15 seconds, I think then it's like, all right, well, it's happening, and I can't do anything, so just enjoy it. But
Yeah. I mean, I don't like roller coasters that much.
Nope,
I
I don't
just
like it
recently started going on roller coasters at the, my old age now or whatever, like late 30s. So fuck jumping out of a plane. You know what I mean? Like that's just to
well, I
me.
feel old now. Like, I went to, because I don't like roller coasters either, because I hate heights. And
Yeah.
like, even riding some of those, because I mean, growing up in the East Coast, like, Busch Gardens is a couple hours away and all that kind of stuff. It's like riding like the like land rides. Those things, as I get older, hurt my body. Where I'm
Oh
just like,
yeah.
and it's like, even like to the point of, like, this past Saturday, I went to go see ETID on their last day of the tour before Rock on the Range, and it's one of those bands that just can't help but go into the crowd, because I'm like, I'm just gonna hang back and watch, and then like two songs, and I'm like, fuck, I need to go into that.
Yep.
I'm still feeling it days later, and I'm just like, I'm not young. My body doesn't bounce back as fast, and I feel so sore.
Yeah. Aches
Uh,
all over.
It does. Um, I guess one of the last questions I typically like to ask, actually, I'll ask you two, just because I know you're a wrestling fan, so I'll ask you a wrestling question.
All
But
right.
so the wrestling question first. Thoughts on the Jinder Mahal thing? I feel like it's such an old school storyline. I feel like, I thought they were gonna go more with it with Rusev, with the U.S. versus, the foreigner, but it's interesting to see that they did it with Jinder Mahal all of a sudden, like, gave him like the push out of nowhere. I mean, I totally know why they're doing it, but
I mean, I think it's think it's weird that like I'll agree that like they were doing like Russia versus U.S. very topical whatever Rusev versus whoever Rusev's the bad guy
and versus Cena
and
was a
then
great story for a while
yeah I
till they
thought it
let
was
him, till they didn't let him win.
yeah I thought it was awesome and I like Rusev. I'm a
Yeah.
Rusev fan. um the whole Jinder Mahal thing, like I mean I kind of missed a couple of Raws or what, or just wrestling programming for a little while. So I was like, "Whoa, who's this guy? He's awesome. He's
3MB.
just like, yeah, he's just this dude who's like in some like Royal Rumble style matches, and then all of a sudden he's got these two little helpers. He's got J&J security with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then he's got like all of a sudden he's getting this giant push out of nowhere, and I'm like, I think he's awesome. He
Yeah.
looks like a fucking maniac.
It was
He's
like
like,
$1 million. He's
yeah.
the typical the protocol of what Vince McMahon loves.
Oh yeah, dude. He is like like 1,000,000 feet tall, ripped to fucking shit. Like awesome. I mean, I was hoping that since like they kind of switched over to Jinder Mahal, I was like, dude, if this is gonna happen, and they're gonna do like Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov style bad quote unquote bad guys,
Yeah.
this is gonna be awesome. This is old school little kid fucking wrestling. I'm gonna be way into this. I don't know what's going to happen. I have a feeling that they're setting something up weird. Jinder's not going to keep the belt long. I would like to see him keep it long, but I know Mike D is not a fan.
No?
Me and him but he's like, fuck that guy. Look at his legs. He's got weird legs.
Sounds like Johnny Drama.
Well, dude. So I don't know. I think I like Rusev. I like Jinder. I hope that they do like some like bad guy heel like super team with them.
Well, they
But
kind of did with the league. Was it the League of Nations or whatever, with Sheamus and Rusev
yeah,
and all of them, and then just quickly tore that apart.
yeah, I don't think they pushed that right or gave it enough time. You know what I mean? But I think that style, the League of Nations thing, we need a bad guy team versus a good guy.
We haven't had a bad guy faction in a long time. I feel
Yeah,
like
I agree. And now and you see that kind of happening with like the women's division with like
yeah,
the Charlotte and her crew of cronies
Yeah.
versus like Sasha Banks and her crew of cronies. You know what I mean? Like super friends. Like
Yeah. It's
it'd be
funny
kind of
that I kind of had. I mean, I didn't have cable for a while either, but so there was like a while after the Attitude Era gave up or went away that I stopped watching wrestling and just didn't have the capability to watch it.
same here.
But the funny thing is as I've gotten more into like when I started booking shows and getting more of different people and going to finding people of different levels of the shows that I could book, and then finding hey, a band's coming through. Hey, do you guys need a place to crash? You can crash at my house. And then like I started finding that touring bands love wrestling. Like it was a part of my life that like went away because like everyone's like wrestling's stupid, like no, it's all fake. And it's like, well, fucking of course it's fake.
Yeah.
And it's like, I always make the joke now. When it's bad, I don't blame the wrestler. I'm not like, oh, I fucking hate so and so. It's like I fucking hate whoever wrote this and passed it through. Like this is a garbage line. They're not doing what they should be. Like I get pissed at all the people behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Same with like I sometimes do now with shows. Like when something's not going, I'm like, God damn, who's fucking tour managing this? Like this is not going well. So I understand now more behind the scenes shit, and I focus on that. But with that being said, I tend to find that more band dudes love wrestling, and I love it because then it's like when you were here in town, I saw your wrestling figures, and I was like, oh, he fucking loves wrestling too. I was like, oh, we can nerd out about this shit.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like when people don't watch it or don't care enough, they're just like, oh, this is stupid.
Yeah. There's I think people like I fell out of the game for a while, years that I wouldn't watch wrestling, and I was like, whatever, it's goofy, it's like a dumb soap opera. And then my wife was like still watched fucking wrestling. I was like, dude, you're really watching Raw? She's like, yeah, where have you been? This is awesome.
I got my wife into it recently in the last like couple of years. I think before she would tolerate it, now she like when we were at Raw Monday, they announced that they were coming back in October for SmackDown. She goes, sent me a text because I was going to the bathroom. She's like, SmackDown's coming back. I like SmackDown more. All the people on SmackDown are better. And I was like, I mean, if you want to go, that's cool. Like, we'll go.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's funny that you're the one now who's like really wanting to go as opposed to me being like, I really want to go see wrestling. Do you want to come with me? And it's like, no, like you're stoked on it too now. It's like, it's great.
Yeah. That's like the reverse. Like my wife got me back into it, which was funny. And then just being on tour, Mike D was a huge wrestling fan, and he was just not. He's like, whatever. It kind of got boring, and I was like, no, you got to watch this with me. Like, you got to watch Raw, dude. Like these guys, they're super cool. It's like when the Wyatts first came out, and I was like, oh, the Wyatts, these guys are fucking creepy. They do this weird shit. You're gonna love it. Ah! And then next thing I know, it's me and him fucking on the bus DVRing every Monday Night Raw, every SmackDown. Now he's got me into fucking Lucha Underground, which is
that shit. And now it's on Netflix too, so you can catch up on all the shit you missed out on.
Yeah, that's
you're like, I already have that.
Crazy. Oh yeah, dude, it's crazy. I love that stuff too.
As I say, last question. I always like to end the episode on a song. So, what would you? Doesn't even have to be necessarily a Killswitch song, because I'm sure you're over all of them at this point. So, what song would you like me to end on, and maybe a little bit about why? Why it's a song that you're feeling at the moment, or a song that has been a song that you've loved for a long time?
Wow, that's a tough one. Like, I don't know. I would say maybe Sonic Reducer by the Dead Boys. That's just because it's like one of my favorite songs in the world.
Okay.
And it's just, fuck that. The Faces, 3-button hand-me-down.
All right.
Because that is the coolest song in the world, and it's got some of the raddest like bass jams, and we already talked about Rod Stewart and how awesome the Faces and his hairdo is. So
it's really funny. Like my dad gave me actually it's right behind me, so I can do this. My dad plays guitar and started buying shit, so he bought this Joe Perry guitar.
Oh, nice.
And then was like, when I went for, I think, Easter or Thanksgiving or something, he was just like, here, you can have this. He just gave it to me.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh, that's awesome. It was like better than leftovers, I guess. And,
yeah, right?
But it was funny because, like, it definitely has, like, that old school kind of sound to it. Like, I'm not really going to be able to play, like, hardcore on that thing, like, not with the pickups that are in it and all that shit. So I started kind of, like, listening to, like, older stuff. Like, Thin Lizzy's one of my favorite, like, older bands and stuff like that. I was jamming on it, and I was like, this riff sounds really familiar. And then like it popped in my head, and I was fucking basically in a real sloppy way. I was playing Rock Candy by Montrose. And I was like, oh
Gross.
shit. So like I started like figuring it out, and then I was like, all right, I'm gonna figure this out, and then sent it to my dad. I was like, well, this is like one of the first riffs I learned how to play on this thing. And he was like, is that fucking Rock Candy? I was like, yep. But it's like you like play shit like that to some people, and they're like, this shit sucks. And it's like, no, you're wrong. Like I know
Yeah,
it's all
yeah,
subject to personal interpretation, but you're wrong.
yeah.
I drive
That's
my
that.
I drive my wife nuts with like old shit like that. She's like, this shit sucks. It's like,
Oh man, that's the golden era of stuff, you know. Hey, speaking of Thin Lizzy, next song you should learn on that is Cowboy Song by Thin Lizzy. Super
actually,
fun.
you know who does a real great. I mean, you probably already know this. Who does a real great cover of that? Actually,
Hmm. Hmm.
Anthrax.
No fucking way.
They had it when they had John Bush in the band. It is one of because they did a covers album. Uh, fuck, I don't know how long ago, but it was like the Japanese version or something.
Oh
Like
wow.
as like a B side to that, or like an import like single on that or whatever. So good.
I
Actually,
gotta
when
I
I was gonna
man,
say when we're done, either I'll find it and text it to you or whatever. But it is
yeah.
one of my like because Thin Lizzy's really hard to cover because either like the band's not quite like in lock. Like even if you're playing to a click and it's like the right tempo, right pace, everything. Like the band just isn't playing it with like the balls and the energy of Thin Lizzy, or like the vocals are like kind of in, and it's like
Yeah.
Bush does it like it sounds good. It's got the right tempo. Obviously, I know like Scott Ian's like a huge Thin Lizzy fan.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like one of those where it's like when I heard it like the first time, I was like, "There's no fucking way it's this song," and then like I heard it and I was like, "Fuck, this song's so good," and I was like, "Well, of course this band would like kill this song," and
Yeah.
it's not done. I don't think it's really done any differently. Like some of the guitars sound like a little more like modern compared to like how it was recorded initially, but such a fucking good song, and it's like the cover was great, and I'm a sucker for cover songs as it is anyway. But
Oh yeah.
that's one of my favorite likes to pull out to be like, oh, you like Thin Lizzy? Check this song out. Like it's fucking Anthrax, and almost everyone has the exact same reaction. You just do like, really? Fuck! How did I not know that? And I was like, I found it one day. Like, I mean, I've had so many of my CDs stolen, my collection stolen so many times over the years that eventually like I was just like, I'm tired of buying this CD for like the third or fourth time. I'm just gonna literally like download an entire band's discography and just be done with it and have it in a digital format so that way I don't have to like be like, okay, that band's got 12 records. What are the first two that I really think are worth buying again?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like that shit sucks. So yeah, I'll send that to you and I'll put the faces on to end this episode.
Nice.
Thank you for your time,
Thank
and
you, man.
hopefully you will see you soonish on the road.
Yeah. Hopefully, man.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, buddy. Take it easy.